interfaces to finite groups and finite abelian groups, actually. And sometimes you can get a lot of information about one universe by mapping it to a different universe, and that's the power in the abstract tools of category theory, which have, of course, revolutionized mathematics in the last 50 years or 60 years. So anyway, this, in some sense, is about a very old theme in parameterized complexity, a theme that lies at the very root of the core ideas of parameterized complexity, including, in particular, the very notion of FPT was an outgrowth of work by Robertson and Seymour that Fellows and Langston did. This is just after my PhD a million years ago. Started looking into what could you do with these powerful tools. Could you, for example, find efficient algorithms in a certain domain, not about graphs, by mapping functorially to graphs? Although we didn't think in terms of functors at that time, but I'll show an example. I'll tell an example later in the talk where we did have a few primitive examples of this sort of aspiration. Okay, so this was very early stuff. This is before parameterized complexity. Parameterized complexity really appeared for the first time at Fox in 1989. Here we were only trying to use the Robertson-Seymour machinery to do, just to see what we could do with it in terms of algorithmics and complexity. Now, this talk is also based on a bit of work from that, which I recently reminded myself of. And Fran and I published yesterday on Hans' birthday. His 60th birthday was yesterday, and there's a festa. And Fran and I contributed a paper. It was mostly personal stuff, but there's 3 new research directions, and that paper is available now from Springer or from us. And one of the things that we talked about in that paper was the Functor Project. Another paper that this talk draws upon was mostly written by Bart Jansen after Bart visited us in Australia, and we spent some time trying to develop this point of view about FPT that is comprehensive with respect to FPT. So now I'll just going to point to these sources of what material I was talking about today. And here's the outline of the talk. If you haven't seen this adjective before, because it was only invented today, I'll talk in the first part. There are 3 parts to the talk. The first part we'll talk about 3 tantamountness lemata. Lemata is just the plural of lemmas. You don't go around saying lemmas anymore than you go around saying hippopotamuses. The correct way to do the plural is lemata. And tantamountness, it's built from 2 words. Tantamount means equivalent, and mountainous conjures perspectival. There's gold in them there are hills. So, oftentimes mountains are full of silver and gold and copper and all kinds of valuable things. And people like Moses and Martin Luther King, they go up to the top of the mountain to look down. They don't go to the beach. They go up and get a different perspective on things. So these 3 lemata are, none of them is particularly difficult, but they do offer a shift of perspective that has, at least in the case of the first lemma of the 3, proven to be highly productive and even revolutionary in terms of how we are developing the tools of multivariate complexity analysis and algorithm design. Part 2, we'll talk about something that we reported about in this recent paper for Hans' birthday festa, which is a solution to a problem that was posed at the lighting workshop a couple of years ago on the subject of computational geometry and topology. And recently, Francis and I managed to work out with UiB, I should mention, and some discussions with people at Bergen. But the ideas were mainly from ours and our group that we answered the question that was asked in light. So part 2, I'll talk about that. And part 3, I'll kind of speculate on where lemma 3 of these 3 what is that adjective? Tantamountainous lemata might lead to. Okay, so let's get going with part 1. And here's the 2 different words of tantamount, meaning roughly equivalent. And the lemma 1, which is that a parameterized problem is fixed parameter tractable, or FPT, if and only if it is kernelizable. And for a reminder, and without fussing too much, because actually there's several different notions of kernelization. There are several different notions of FPT. The variations are not important. This is the heart of it. In kernelization, in polynomial time, we take our input instance to the parameterized problem pi, and we compute a reduced instance x prime k prime. Well, this is a many one reduction, and we can determine whatever later. But for a shot, a many one reduction to an x prime k prime, such that we have the preservation of the decision. Yes, if and only if yes, yes here, if and only if yes here. K prime less than or equal to k. You want to sell kernelization to anybody in a practical setting, you need this. I know there are definitions running around which are not the ones that Downey and Fellows set up, but K prime is allowed to be polynomial or whatever in K, and if you do any numerical examples, you'll quickly see that if you have n equal to, say, 300 and K is 20, you wouldn't want to kernelize because you'd end up with something 100 bazillion times slower, according to these more lax definitions of kernelization. But here, we could at least say to an applied person that it's polynomial time, which is free, more or less, nothing exponential. You might be able to shrink it, and K prime, the part that's going to capture all the exponential costs, is not going to get worse. Don't worry about it. This is headed for practicality. Okay. And the third requirement in kernelization is that even though this has unbounded size, n, the total number of bits and the description of x and the parameter k, where you end up has bit length just some function of the parameter, nothing about n here. That's the key point. Then you can get into all kinds of stuff about whether k is polynomial and k or so forth. Now I have a hat here because having lived with this subject for such a long time, I have anecdotes and bits of history, and every once in a while I want to tell a few stories that you won't find written down usually, because I can't. And this is to remind me of a certain set of stories about this point of the talk. This is recently cited as due to folklore, but it wasn't folklore. In fact, it was proved twice by Downey and Fellows, for good measure. It was proved once with Kai and Chen in that paper I had here a minute ago. Well, anyway. Kai Chen, Downey and Fellows, and then later we reproved it in and it's published in Downey Fellows Stegate survey. But you know, what's funny about this, the proof is just so easy. I mean, Rolf Niedermeyer said, it's not really a lemma. You know, the proof is way too easy. Basically, the way you prove this is you say, well, if pi is FPT, we're looking at something here. We have a running time of some f of k times n to the c. And so if x is really big, if k is bigger than f of k, if x is bigger than f of k, then can be solved in time n to the c plus 1. You don't do anything. Your mapping just says leave it alone. If it's bigger, if it's n to the c plus 1, you just do it in polynomial time and answer it. And if it's smaller than that, well, then you're already here. You don't do anything. You just stay there. This is equal to this, and you're already bound. Okay. So now these are all three lemmas, not difficult to prove, but comprehensive in terms of FPT. And the lemma that's in the paper with Bart is that a parameterized problem is FPT if and only there is we call it a stay-at-home. Anybody staying at home lately? There's a stay-at-home WQ on the kinds of input, the X's that you have for your input to pi. That's p times order tests, and the yes instances are characterized by a finite abstraction set. Now, this you can almost guess where how this works. Is basically we use the kernelization, we use FPT, we use kernelization to define the ordering, and this is p times, so the tests submit p time order tests, and you take the minimum guys, and it's all, in some sense, a reworking of lemma 1, and especially leaning heavily on kernelization to define the well-defined order. And then the lemma that's in the paper with Grant is the pi is FPT if and only if this is not a stay-at-home situation. We get it. We functor ourselves over to some nice place. Functor ourselves over to some nice place where we land, where there are FPT order tests and a well-quasi order. So what we're calling a friendly well-quasi order, which is a term we'll use throughout this talk, is a set of objects, which is, and look, forget about well-quasi order. We only work with partial orders. So just think partial order. Whenever there's WQO, just think partial order. Just like graphs, and there's a bottom element at the end of the graph and so forth. A friendly WQO is a partial order with FPT orders. Okay. And there are these three comprehensive lemmas. The Functor Project says, hey, we can maybe do a lot more with this than we have so far about objects other than graphs. For example, finite sets of points in the plane, which was the subject of the lighting workshop. Now, okay, these are the two sources of lemma 1. Now, I guess we've done the proof of lemma 1. We've waved our hands about it. If k, if n is bigger than fk, then okay, and we don't do anything, and if it's bigger, then we run the n to the c plus 1. Or run the FPT algorithm, which now runs in time n to the c plus 1, and it's bigger than fk, and otherwise we just leave it alone and declare ourselves kernelized. Okay. Now, I would thought perhaps that some of the young researchers that might be in the audience are unfamiliar with basics of parameterized complexity, and so I wanted to, and graph minor, so I wanted to review some of this. The game that we play in parameterized complexity tends to be played between the complexity class XP and the complexity class FPT. And the XP is the parameterized problems that are solvable in time, leaving out the big O's. That's the bother our eyes with, that you can stick in the big O's where you want to. Into some function of k. So the parameter is ending up in the exponent. The game we're trying to do, in some sense, is to get the k out of the exponent and just pay for it up front, some exponential function of k. This doesn't have to be a times, it can be a plus. Doesn't make any difference to the definition of the class FPT. A plus is even better because it clearly separates the exponential cost from the polynomial cost. N, remember, is the total length, the bit length of the input. The parameter does not have to be a positive integer. The parameter might be a vector thing. It might be a whole slew of secondary measurements. So here's an example of, well, let's go to, here's an example. It has to do with the Robertson Seymour work. The input is a graph H and a graph G. The parameter is declared to be a graph H. And the question is whether H is a minor G. And they proved that it's FPT. And the proof is, well, it was maybe like hundreds of pages. It took them 20 years to write down. We'll come back to that. That's, this is a reminder B to put my storytelling hat at some point. But let's just remind ourselves what a minor is, first of all. H is a minor of G. We say H is less than or equal to G in the minor order if H can be obtained from G up to isomorphism by a series of the operations, delete a vertex or delete an edge or contract an edge. And when you contract an edge, I don't draw the picture, it just means that the edge just shrinks up. And we have the edge here and shrink it up. And that's what contracting is without drawing too many pictures. Okay, so they proved that this is FPT, and okay, now put my hat back on. And then this has a consequence, particularly with theorem 1 about well-class ordering, that we'll visit in just a moment, in proving that various problems are FPT rather than an XP. Oh, and by the way, I meant to mention that it is absolutely unconditionally proven, and we can find the proof in Danny Fellowes' 99, the original book on transcription. These are not equal. Now, compare the classical setting where we play the game between P and NP, nobody knows if they're equal or not. But in the setting of parameterized complexity, we do know unconditionally that FPT is not equal to XP. Problems such as K dominating set, K vertex cover, K feedback vertex set are trivially classified as in XP. And we can use the Robertson Seymour machinery to classify them as in FPT. And in some sense, this is what this research direction and talk is all about. It's about classification machinery. Why do we care about classification machinery? Well, it saves us time worrying about, oops, I've got my hat on, I should be telling the story. It saves us time worrying about the other possibility. It might be that the problem is not an FPT or standard evidence, it's M1 or W1 hardness. If we have classified it in FPT, we don't have to worry about trying to prove it's hard. We know it's an FPT, and now we can try to get a decent algorithm, because anything that has running time that looks like this is, well, a little bit dubious. You know, put my history of ideas hat on. In fact, when this stuff started coming out in the mid-'80s, the intellectual leaders of Foxtrot and so would have nothing to do with it. It was absolutely anathema for years before it was acceptable, and even decades, really. I remember standing around at a stock meeting. I'd walked up to a circle of people who were talking, and among them was Dave Johnson. And somebody asked David, what do you think about this Robertson Seymour stuff? And he said, that's not computer science, that's a mathematical curiosity. Okay, but wait a second. Nobody knew, and still nobody knows, whether P is equal to NP. Somebody else told me later that people went home and got out their Gary and Johnson were rummaging around in the back, you know, because maybe P is equal to NP, and maybe it takes some really deep mathematics, and maybe we can look in the back and get famous overnight by finding an NP-hard problem that the Robinson-Seymour machinery applies to. People did. It led the ramp, but nobody found anything. Well, anyway, that was funny. See what else did I have to say about that? Oh, yeah. So when in the beginning, when Langston and I started looking at the consequences of the work of Robinson and Seymour, we wrote a paper, submitted to Stock, and actually Blum, who now has a Turing Award, phoned me at home in Idaho, my first job out of PhD, and said, your paper is absolutely stunning. I had to phone you at home. I'm sorry. I'm just blown away. It's the most exciting paper in the entire stack of stock papers that I'm on the committee for. It's sensational. It was rejected. Okay. You get these wonderful schizophrenic experiences if you have a really good new idea. Go to the people and play photonics for 50 years and so on. So the best for advice about attitude for young scientists is what best you can hope for is to have an idea which is so great that it's instantly rejected for a number of weeks. It's fun. Anyway. All right, so imagine, and something, okay, everything's okay. Imagine how big n has to be bigger than this, okay? Actually, I did a little arithmetic the other day, you might try it. When you evaluate a tower of twos, and this means the tower of twos height described by tower of twos, height described by tower of twos. You start at the top and you work down. Have a tower of twos of height 5. You're talking about the processor for every proton in the universe, for the lifetime of the universe, and the processor is going so fast it's getting on X-ray. An ideal parallel machine, you burned up all the time you could ever get in the lifetime of the universe on the supercomputer. The supercomputer with a tower of 2 height 5. These are big numbers. Okay. Now here's theorem 1 of Robinson-Seymour. It says that finite graphs are well conjugated by minors. And that just means there are no infinite antichains. So let's look at a classical example of how we use theorem 1 and theorem 2. We pick on planar graphs because there's some element of familiarity for most people. So we're looking at the graph. So you have the inputs of graph. We do some ordinary decision problem in class, we're saying. And the question is it planar or not? Well, here's one thing we can observe about planar graphs. They are downward flows in the minor order. If I have a planar graph and I delete a vertex, I still have a planar graph. I use the same drawing. If I delete an edge, I use the same drawing. I have a planar graph. If I contract an edge, I just morph the drawing. So planar graphs are downward flows in the minor order, and we say, well then, all right, so they're down here somewhere. Downward means below in the minor order, and so we can draw a schematic picture like this. The non-planar graphs are up here somewhere. And once you cross the line into planar, you stay there. And we can say, well, let's just take all the minimal guys that are non-planar, and it turns out there are 2. And there are familiar for Kowski's theorem, this is K3, and this is K5. Anyway, you go below these, you end up in planar, and everything, well, because they're minimal, everything above, all the non-planar graphs have to be above one or the other or both. So this finite obstruction set characterizes planarity in one way, not a very good way, but we could take our input G and see if it has, this is a minor, that's FPT, that's theorem 2. And we can check whether K5 is a minor of our input graph. That, again, theorem 2. Those of each FPT, regardless of the size of G. G might be used for these tests or NQ with differing constants in front of that. And so planarity is FPT. It's a classification theorem. Now, it's so powerful, these 2 theorems are so powerful, you can do the weirdest stuff. You can make up problems all day long, parameterized problems, if you like. For example, and then just, oh, I'll classify it as FPT using these powerful tools. For example, let's consider the inputs of graph, and the question is parameters k. Can you embed the graph in free space so that it is not the case, in such a way that you avoid the situation where there are k vertex disjoint cycles, each of which in your embedding in free space is non-trivially knotted? Oh, well, let's see. If the answer were yes, you would manage to embed the graph in free space and strain ball model, and so that you can't find k vertex disjoint cycles that are knotted, non-trivially knotted. Well, let's see. If you delete something, it's not going to create a knot. If you delete an end, it's not going to just get better. And if you contract, it's not going to tie any knots. It's easy to check, so it's FPT. We have no idea what the algorithm is. We don't even think at the first thing. All we know is that it's FPT. So that's what we mean by a classification tool. At least we don't have to try and show it's very hard. And to be fair, and related to classical complexity, if you think about the classic book by Gary and Johnson on NP-completeness, they make the case for the importance of classification tools. You know, Ross says, why should I care about NP-completeness? And the answer is, well, if we show that the problem is NP-complete, then we no longer need to waste our time, plausibly, trying to find an efficient algorithm, at least until we find an efficient algorithm for all these other ones that are NP-complete. So classification is a good first step. So here we'll go to part two now. At the UiB seminar on FPT and computational geometry and topology, I asked the question, I said, well, finite graphs have this powerful FPT classification machinery, thanks to Algorithms Seminar. Can we develop similarly powerful machinery, FPT classification machinery, for other settings, such as finite sets of points in the plane? I didn't know at the time. But what Fran and I did in our contribution to the Manifesto is to, we don't want, you can do this, the answer is you can, but trivially with some stupid partial order exemplary interesting. You do it non-trivially. Interesting and powerful? And the answer to that is yes. Okay. And to describe the answer that we came up with, we have to talk about the FPT Higman lemma, which part of which is true in the case of finite sequences with Havlicek-Sankaran, which is a UiB twice. And so let me describe what this is. And by the way, Higman's lemma is at the heart, it's at the beating heart of the proof by Robinson and Seymour of their theorem one about the well-quasi ordering. And what they do is they have a structure here that goes layer by layer, and this is in Downey Fellows 99, kind of a schematic, which is stolen from a talk by Neil Robertson, describing the structure of their proof. As long as it is, it's well structured. And they move from layer to layer from something like shrub depth to path width to tree width, and then on out. And when you move to the next level, we use minimal bad sequence arguments, and you use Higman's lemma, and you use ladle. Okay. We'll return to that thing. But here's a statement of Higman's lemma. If you ignore the FPT part, and the FPT part, you ignore the friendlies and ignore the FPT. Higman lemma per se says if you have a well-quasi order, then so is the Cartesian product. There are two. Okay, I should have two of these guys, these five, whatever. And the ordering that you put on these pairs is this one in this picture. That the first one is less than or equal to the first one here, and the second one is less than or equal to this one in the second order. So if these guys are well quasi ordered, then the Cartesian product of the two sets with this ordering is a well quasi order. We prove it by a minimal bad sequence argument. Okay, and now finite sequences of Q. We have Q. So we'll look at I've got a sequence of elements of Q, and that's my objects here. Well, what makes this sequence less than or equal to this one? Well, it's that there's an in order respecting relation, injective relation here, where the one above is greater than or equal to the one below. Every one of these, if you go backwards on the arrow, is injecting into order-preserving relation to this target. And Higman 2 says that if Q is a well quasi order, then so are these guys with this order. And Higman 3 says, well, never mind the order. We just take finite sets of elements of Q through the Q, subsets of Q, finite subsets, and we define the ordering to be rather like this. It's just there's some injective relation from the little one to the big one. It's order respecting this one is above this one and so on, just like in the picture. The extension of Higman's lemma that we prove in our contribution to the Heinz-Fescher and with the Lottie in the case of sequences is that if you assume that Q is a friendly WTO, it has FPT order tests, then these guys have FPT order tests also. And this is a crucial tool in our answer to the Leiden question. Now I'll quickly sketch how that goes. So we're now worried about finite sets of points in the plane. That's our object in the computational geometry. So I'll just put up an example. And we'd like to put an ordering on these objects that come from computational geometry. And we'd like it to be a well-quasi order, and we would like it to have FPT order. So I could say, well, this set of points is less than or equal to this set of points, and it's FPT, with this being the lower one being the point. So here's what we do. We have an object map that we say, well, let's start with this, and we will grow disks around these points, starting with the radius of 0. This is the idea. And then we'll just grow these disks larger and larger and record in a sequence of graphs the intersection graph. Now, as we grow the radiuses, we're going to end up with an object map that takes us, first of all, to the empty graph, and when the radius is 0, there aren't any edges because there's no intersection of the disks. And we know that at the end of the day, if there are n points, we're going to end up with the complete graph on n points when the disks are all big enough that they all intersect. And then in between, occasionally, as we grow the radius, something will happen and we get a different graph. So we're going to get, this is H1, and we're going to get H2, and then we grow the disks and something else will happen, we're going to H3, and eventually, as we grow the disks and record things happening and giving us a new graph, we'll get a spectrum of graphs. It starts with the empty graph and ends with Kn, all right? So that's the object map that we're talking about. And by Higman, we know that these guys are well quasi-ordered by the sequence ordering, injective sequence ordering. working from Q being the minor order in the finite graphs. So these spectra of these point sets, the object map is extracting some kind of information about the point set. There are many possible different ways that you can extract information about a point set. This is a simple one. It's related to Morse theory. So we can extract we'll call this the spectrum of the set of points. We have a spectrum in this set of points. We have an ordering here, which is a well-quadratic ordering with FPT order test, and we just define this set of points less than or equal to this set of points if this is less than or equal to this. That's the Functor project in a nutshell. And in the exam, it's non-trivial because Higgs is non-trivial. And of course, graph-liners is non-trivial. What can we do with it? Well, you can make up stories that are a little bit fake, and I'm probably going to talk about that. But you can make up applications where you can use this tool. We've constructed now a tool, and so you're going to have a tool. It's a hammer, and you go around looking for nails. Well, you can find some nails. You dream that, well, I've got a tool here. Can I use it on point line covers? Some of the other famous FPT problems in computational geometry. I don't know how to do that. I don't think we can use this extraction. Okay, so we have talked about Hickman, and this is our quick sketch of our solution to Leiden problem. It's a non-trivial ordering on point sets. Notice that the scale invariant, the disk will give you the same spectrum, and we roll up the scale and plane and whatever. Okay. So what exactly? Let's do one more thing about this possibility of constructing. See, if we have the vision here for the Functor project is you have a problem about whatever finite sets of points in the plane. You have some property, point line cover, whatever. You want to engineer for your problem a customized, well-friendly WTO, which will classify your problem as FPT. And that we can go back to the very beginning where we had the three lemmas. Part one. You see, we're exploring in the work with Bart, and then in this where we take a rocket ship by Functor to go to some other place that's got a friendly WTO, and we construct one, stay home in the object where we started off with our problem. Here we are, in both cases, we are constructing well-quasi-orders which are customized to the problem. Okay, and that's important. So when we try to think about where to go with 1 and 3, if we can, if it is as productive, possibly if there's only one, we will be engineering customized friendly WQOs to do our classification stuff. And here's another thing. Robertson, over the years, I've had a history of ideas there. I've had many fascinating conversations with Robertson Seymour over the years. And because I'm a fellow Canadian, Robertson Canadian, and he said, you know, what we're really trying to prove, this is 1987, so what we're really trying to prove is that finite graphs, edge labeled, just read the blue, because that's all the Robinson said was the blue. If they're edge labeled from a well-quasi-ordered, then they are well-quasi-ordered, that such things are well-quasi-ordered in the edge labeled minor order. What is it? Now I've got this graph, and every edge has a label on it. The labels are taken from the well-quasi-order. What is the edge labeled minor ordering on these objects, these finite graphs with edge labels. Well, you know, if you delete a vertex, it just goes away, and you're left with a graph that has edge labels. If you delete an edge, well, it goes away with its label. And if you contract an edge, well, it goes away, and the other edges, everything else sticks around with its edge labels. And where you want to go, the G is above H in this edge labeled minor ordering. When you end up to isomorphism with this label H, the labels on the edges that correspond to the labels that you're inheriting from G are less than or equal to the label over there. Okay. So the way the edges end up respects the labeling that's been inherited by the operation. Now, we offer the extended Robertson conjecture, which is the finite graphs edge labeled from a friendly WQO, that means well-applied ordering and FPT order test, are in fact friendly as well as well-applied ordering. I don't know what the status of Robertson's conjecture is. I know they use some of this kind of stuff in the proof of the graph finite theorem, but this is all kind of work in progress, and it will become clear at some point. Oh, by the way, well, I should leave. It's only 45 minutes, so I should leave time for questions. And so, you know, there's other ways that you could extract, just for a final word, we could work in progress is looking at various ways of extracting information. Trying to do point line cover, some kind of extraction. You might work out pairs of points and gradually extend these arrows and count how many points you hit. Picture, I'll just run out of time. But we'll leave a little bit of time for questions. So I'll stop for now. But the hope is that this direction becomes as productive as results. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mike. So, yes, I can. Is there any questions?
So maybe I can ask a question. First of all, hi, Mike. Thanks for that nice talk. And you showed this boosting basically of one WQO to another. And I was wondering if there's anything known about, say, computability of if you know something about how large the anti-chains are in your starting WQO, and now you apply either this subset construction or one of your other constructions to make new ones. Can you say anything about how large the abstraction sizes get or the anti-chains get?
Now, the size of the obstruction sets would be tied to the particular lore ideal. So I guess you're asking if there's some sort of general way of getting bounds on such stuff without reference to the lore ideal itself. You know, there might be, because you could sort of quantify the lore ideal in terms of its description length. I mean, if you settle down into some logic, it's conceivable, for example, that you might get some kind of bounds based on the minimum length of a numeric second order description of the idea and property. Never mind tree, just the logical description. I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's a very interesting question.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Any more questions?
I have more funny stories, but I won't tell them now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I just had a comment in support of what Mike was saying. That indeed, I think, yeah, I mean, you do know, yeah, we do need to kind of talk about these obstruction sets in terms of the size of, in terms of the description for these lower idles in some logic. Like, for example, for if you have a lower idle in the graph minor order, then definitely it is the case that you can describe these in monadic second order logic. You can describe any lower idle in the minor order, in the graph minor order, in monadic second order logic. And then you can try and ask for what is the size of the obstruction set in terms of the size of the describing sentence. So, but I don't, yeah. So, but I don't know about these bounds in general. Hi, Brian. But is it possible that this is also a tower? Right?
Yes, you can't. There's some amazing information about for example, it's known that the number of obstructions for genus G cannot be polynomial in G unless co-NP is contained in NP set power. Stuff like that. That's interesting. And then you get this wild stuff going on. Like there's one obstruction to path with one. There are two obstructions to path with two. There's 35 by Kinnersley's work. Path with 3 and path with 4 has more than 100 billion. You get really explosive numbers just in terms of the number of distinct obstructions. Get functions which go faster away than towers of 2's of height k. Even towers of 2's of height described by towers of 2's of height described by towers of 2. You get beyond f epsilon 0 in terms of fast-running functions when you start to quantify things going on in the brain. You can use these fast-running functions to prove things like the graph minor theorem cannot be proven canonically because it's associated with functions with fast, but anything proven canonically. That's why.
Yeah. So, are there any other questions? If not, I want to thank you, Mike, once again for a great talk. Yes, and have a nice weekend, and to everyone. Goodbye. And, yes.
Hi, Fran. Thanks,
Hi,
Mike.
Fran.
See you.
Yeah.
Well.